Greetings. Welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube page. I'm Fire Lotus the Witch, and today I'm just going to go ahead and say this. This is going to be somewhat of a long video. I'm going to try not to ramble, but on TikTok, I was asked about some tips about mediumships and how I got to where I am now and all the things that I've learned in the process of that. So I'm going to go over that. Specifically, I am a channeling medium, okay, which means I'm a medium, but instead of just reading the cards or connecting with your spirits, I literally channel that spirit or spirits or deities. But how did I get here? How did I know I was a medium? What are the ups and downs and everything else in between? So let's begin. Also, at the very end of this, I'm going to pull 1 to 2 cards from the Angel and Ancestors Oracle cards, so make sure you stick around for that, and send this to somebody who may also want to know. So for one, I've been a medium my entire life, but it took about 29 to 30 years for me to actually realize that. What were some of the signs and things like that? So the very first ever experience that I had with a spirit, I was young enough to still be in a crib. How do I know this? Because again, this is one of the very first vivid memories that I have. For some reason, I was upset and I was crying, and all of a sudden this elderly woman, she had like something wrapped around her head, appeared, and she was kind of like, so say I'm in the crib, right? She was kind of like hovering, but I could see like all the way down to like basically from the head all the way down to like the hip area. And it was weird though, because it wasn't like she was physically there. It was more along the line, she was like made up of like this blue, like we'll say like smoke, or like, you know, when dust falls and light shines through the window and it like highlights it perfectly. Imagine that, but an elderly woman. And I don't exactly know what she was saying to me, but she was consoling me. That was the very first image. I used to grow up telling my mom, telling my brother, and it wasn't in art telling other family members, but it wasn't until I was 18, I was having a conversation with my ex-sister-in-law, because her family was into the witchy woo-woo. So we were just sitting down painting, and we were talking about some of the experiences that I had. Take in mind, my brother was in the other room, or in the living room, so he heard everything that I was saying, and my sister-in-law looked over at him and was like, "What?" The only thing this man could utter was, "I thought that was a dream." And I was like, "Oh, you saw it too." We used to share rooms. And he goes, "Yeah, but I thought I was dreaming." I was like, "No, congratulations, you also saw spirits too." So, all throughout my life, I've had weird experiences. Let me know if you want me to do an in-depth video on it. But I used to live right outside the outskirts of a very old slash big national park, and it had a very, very bloody history when it comes to the Civil War. And our bus went through there, and I had one of the craziest experiences that I think I've ever had in my entire life up to this date. So let me know if you want me to do a more in-depth video on that one. So there's that. I've also lived in haunted locations, but it has changed dramatically. At one point in time when I was younger, I used to visibly see them, and to the point where that's the reason to this day that I sleep with the blindfold on when I go to sleep at night, because there were multiple nights when I was younger where I would wake up and just see dead people standing around me. Then, unfortunately, I love the show, but I was also eventually introduced to a show called Psychic Kids, and it was basically this show with Chip Coffey, the medium, and basically he would go around getting these kids together and trying to do exercises to, you know, kind of express their psychic abilities. That show also fucked me up, because in that moment, I got tired of seeing these things. I couldn't tell anybody what I was experiencing, so I tried to shut it off. Never do that. Typically, when you try to shut it off, it screws it up a little bit. Fast forward to when I was 16 going on 17, me and the person that I was with at that moment in time, we were both teaching ourselves, or teaching one another, witchcraft. I came out of the broom closet of witchcraft. I started studying and practicing. Well, I started researching at 11 and 12 and fully came out of the at the age of 13. So in that process of that, I had this one defining experience that kind of messed my sight up, and it was because I was doing more advanced things than I should have been doing, and it scared the shit out of me, and that scars it. So typically, if you are psychically active when you were younger, which almost every kid is, because again, we don't have that filter that society throws over us about, oh, get out of your head, you're just seeing things, it's just your imaginary friend. I just wanted to go ahead and let you know, if you had an imaginary friend, there's a 99.9% chance that it wasn't just an imaginary friend. It could have been a spirit guide, it could have been a familiar spirit, it could have been a spirit wherever you lived. But I digress. During this this event, I was doing a shadow work. Not the shadow work that you hear about on TikTok about, no. Different type of shadow work, but I was doing, I was doing a meditation to view my own shadow self, to kind of come to terms with it, right? You know that saying, I no longer argue with my demons, I dance with them now. For anybody who is just stumbling across this, I do not mean actual demons, okay? But anyways, I did that, and where we were living at that moment in time, our backyard bridged together with the city cemetery. I think it's a cemetery because there wasn't a church near it. And I was in the deepest meditation that I've ever done. I experienced a slight moment of levitation in that moment. I already have a video of this experience up on here somewhere, and I'll try to link it in the descriptions below. But anyways, I all of a sudden got yanked out of a meditation. And if you've ever actually gotten into a deep meditation, being yanked out of it, it's almost like you finally hit that good deep sleep, and all of a sudden out of nowhere you're jostled awake. It scared the shit out of me. So my entire body is full on alert, and I look up directly in front of me, and again, I'm kind of lower and this is going uphill a little bit, and at the very top of that hill there is a light pole that is basically highlighting a specific grave, and that's when I saw something crouching down, staring directly at me. And it scared the shit out of me for the very first time, and I have complex PTSD, so I've experienced a lot of shit. For the very first time in my entire life, I understood what the fight or flight thing is, as in my entire body, and every inch of it was like, you need to get up and go inside now. I could not. I was completely froze and petrified in fear. Like, I was screaming at myself in my head, like, get up and go inside. My body could not. Now, like I mentioned when I first started this story, I was doing things that I was not experienced enough to do. Thus, as I got older, I learned that I wasn't afraid of it because it was evil. It was just old. It was very, very old. And most of the other practitioners and spiritual people that I've talked to, more than likely it was just curious. That is another thing when it comes to the psychic ability thing and developing your mediumship abilities. You also need to work on psychic protection, because just like when a witch casts a circle or does a ritual, we become a beacon. We become a light in the darkness, if you would. And there's a lot of things that go bump in the night that are just curious. They're not coming to hunt you down or possess you. They're just curious of like, yo, what's that? So always know that psychic protection is a must, and I'm not just saying like wearing amulets and charms. I mean actually building psychic protections up, all right? So that happened then. We used to go ghost hunting around the same time, so I was actively deeping and in it, if you would, when it comes to spiritual activities. Another practice that we did, because believe it or not, this is before I learned that I was a death witch. I've lived around a lot of cemeteries and graveyards, so a thing that we would do back when I lived, literally my backyard was a graveyard, we would actually, me and him would spend hours just walking around in the graveyard, and we would try to open ourselves up to lead us or to get a spirit to pull us into a grave. And then we would try to, like, basically he would take notes about what I was experiencing or what I was sensing, and then we would try and actually go look that person up to see if anything was it's very difficult to do nowadays. It'd be easier, but that's also an exercise that you can do as well. Now obviously know that when you enter a graveyard or cemetery, there are specific etiquettes that you need to follow, and most importantly, after leaving any place that has a very strong spiritual presence, you need to make sure before you get in that car saying, hey, spirits, you're not allowed to come with me, okay? Okay. Now, this all started to hit ahead. At this moment, I was also actively having premonitions, small little dreams. I call them deja vus. There are 3 different types of deja vus, but the ones that I'm talking about is where you dream of a specific second or scene, and then months, weeks, days later, you act actively live that out, and it triggers, when I do it, it triggers me, and I'll say, oh my God, deja vu, or deja vu. It's basically, I believe it's our brain's way of saying, hey, you're on the right path, right? So I was doing that. If you would like, I think I've already done videos on the premonitions that I've had that scared the shit out of my mom. But let me know and I'll totally redo another one. So in the process of this, I'm doing all the exercises that I can, right? And if this is the point, some of this is before I even had a computer. So most of it was trying to find books at the local library that had psychic abilities on it and just kind of expressing myself. Now, when I was younger and around this time, I was practicing Wicca. So actual meditation, quieting the mind, visualization and all of that. That was a huge, I used to do it a lot. It was also before my ADHD got really, really out of control. So also know that when I use the term meditation, anything can be meditation. Anything that gets you to focus on one specific thought, one specific intention, and or even walk through meditations, that can definitely help with ADHD. Here's a slight warning though, if you do any walkthrough meditations on this platform, YouTube, check to make sure they do not have any frequencies in them. And if they do have frequencies in them, you need to research outside of that video what those frequencies can do, because I used to listen to some that would help me lucid dream. And then I stumbled across one and it had a frequency in it that gave me night terrors for like an entire week. So there's your slight warning. Now, no. It wasn't until I got here in Florida that things dramatically changed for me. And if you're still here, thank you. I'm trying to keep this short. So when I first got down here, within the first week, my father-in-law, now my father-in-law, he was going and getting married in St. Augustine's. And this was the kicker that changed everything for me. So at this point in time, medically speaking, I had anxiety. I'd never really had any panic attacks. Okay, this is very important because unbeknownst to me, my partner's in the other room. I did not know that I was about to go to one of the most oldest still operating and still standing places in the continental United States, specifically Florida. It was one of the first places that was actually, I believe, Spaniards settled here in St. Augustine. Okay. So we go to the wedding, and slight detailed, they were having this giant fucking fish fry. So we go to the wedding, we go through the ceremony. It was great. I got the shit burned out of me by the sun and the reflections. So we're going back to our truck, right? And at this point in time, obviously, my father-in-law just got married. He rode with us there. He's not leaving with us, right? So me and my partner are trying to maneuver our way back to where we actually parked in the parking garage, not realizing I was about to stumble down the actual historical part of St. Augustine's. When I tell you that my reality blurred together, I was having overlays where every time I would blink, I went back in time. It was literally like I was back in the original time frame way back then, merging with now where you have modern tourists walking around. I had no idea what the hell was going on with me, and I was literally panicking. By the time that we got to the truck, I had a full-on panic attack, not realizing why I was having the panic attack. It was because of the psychic energy. So yes, you will see a lot of mediums, they have anxiety issues, and I believe it's from spirit and or the psychokinetic energy. For some reason, again, we all have spiritual translators in us, but a lot of the times you can experience what I call spirit anxiety. It is there's so much energy, or that spirit gives so much energy that sometimes the translator glitches and you basically just get pure anxiety, but it's always outside of your normal anxiety, right? So if you have been experiencing anxiety, and it just doesn't make sense, it could be spirit is trying to relay something to you. If you go back, because I used to watch the Long Island Medium and all the other ones, well, if you go back to some of those episodes, they experience panic attacks and anxiety due to the fact that there was a spirit that was trying to interact with them. So that is a common trait, all right? So I didn't understand what happened, and this is the main kicker that led to eventually me becoming a medium and fully owning that, which was I had a Halloween oracle deck. And I was one of those people that when with the deck, I would only read from the book, right? I had not learned how to actually read the cards or how to channel the spirit. And by the way, unbeknownst to me again, that property that we moved down to when I first got down here was one of the most haunted experiences that I've ever had in my entire life. If you would like me to do a more in-depth video on all the things that we experienced, and I possibly will also be able to show pictures of some of these experiences, let me know. I would love to do a deep dive video on that. So there was all different types of spiritual shit happening on that property, but the one particular thing was I left my oracle deck on the living room table, right? The coffee table. We had some things to do, and we come back, and unbeknownst to me, the only thing that is there is the box and the cards. At this point in time, me and my partner were the only ones living on the property. I still, to this day, did not find it. I turned the house upside down. I could not find it. And my partner looked at me and he goes, just read the damn cards. And I was like, you don't understand. I can't do this. I need the book. And he looked at me and he goes, Lotus, read the damn cards. Okay. That was all it took. So in the same process of this, I discovered a metaphysical store in my area, and the actual owner of that basically adopted us. So she is my grandmother now. And we used to go up there and spend hours just hanging out with her. And there were a few people that came through, conversation got sparked up, and that was when I started reading oracle cards. There's this one particular person, and if you ever see this, hi, hello, they have a very amazing perfume collection that they create their own scents. And we had a wild interaction where I pulled, the Halloween deck has multiple cards that are owls. Every single card that I pulled for her was all about owls, and she had just had another spiritual experience with it. So those were the small things that started to build my confidence of, okay, wait, I can read people. There's something here. That's important. Your confidence and learning exercises to build the confidence through what you're trying to do and the information that you're gathering is crucial. Okay. Now, you'll also learn to filter out some of that too, because not every thought that we have, is from spirit. So at this same area, time has passed, and I think I'm in my 24, 25. I went through this 2-year spiritual awakening, and I believe, so before that 2-year, or during that 2-year spiritual awakening, I went back to Alabama, and I had to take care of my grandmother, which eventually I became a caregiver because inevitably she passed away. I was holding her hand while she passed away, asleep, but not really asleep. And in the process of that, in those 2 years, I was more alone, while also I had experienced more death in my life in the entire time that I'd ever been alive. My grandmother passed away. My aunt passed away. A dear friend of mine, rest in peace, Tiptoe Chick, here on YouTube, also passed away in the same month. My aunt did not, but my grandmother and her passed away within the same month. She passed away October the 4th. My grandmother did, and Tiptoe Chick, I believe, passed away on, I want to say either the 28th, 29th, or I think it was the 29th going into the 30th, or the 30th going into the 31st. And I didn't understand what the hell was going on. But again, spiritual awakening, Phoenix level, everything that I'd ever known, everything that I ever believed got turned upside down. All right. So fast forward, I come back here. I'm about 25 now, I believe, 24. And I got a reading from a psychic at this particular metaphysical store. And we sat down and she looked at me and she goes, so why are you not talking to your ancestors? And I was like, what do you mean, why am I not talking to my ancestors? I don't know how. And she goes, yes, you do. Your grandmother's been trying to talk to you since she passed away. And I was like, first off, how the fuck did you know my grandmother passed away? Duh, she's a medium. So in the process of that, outside of that reading, because it helped me realize, oh, fuck, wait, I could be a medium, right? Now, take in mind, I still did not call myself a medium. So I then went home and she's like, you need to start talking with them. And this is the key that kind of helped unlock that door, which was you need to let your spirit team know that you are open and ready to receive. Why is that so crucial? Because you're allowing them to say, okay, I'm ready for this. That bled into what I call the 30-day spiritual 30-day challenge, or the spiritual 30-day challenge. For 10 minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes, I set aside. I typically do it in the morning time. And I sit down and I talk to my ancestors like I'm talking to y'all right now. Okay. And when I started doing this, and I made it a challenge to myself to do it for 30 days. I have not stopped it since. In the process of this, and the reason that exercise is so important is because A, you're opening that line of communication. The repetitiveness of you doing it, it's strengthening that line of communication. And the key to this is your spirit team is learning what messages and how to send them to you and how you're going to be able to translate them. And then you're also learning how to perceive those spirits and that spiritual energy as well. And with me, what first started happening was random scents. Yes, spirit will use the world around you, where you could say you talk to your grandmother and all of a sudden you smell this very floral scent, almost like a floral perfume that reminds you of her. That's your ancestors relaying messages to you and verifying that they're there. So in the process of this, I started smelling like dark, fresh brewed black coffee. And I talked to my mom, and come to find out that was my great-great-grandfather who I had not met. And it kind of evolved from there to the point now. And there's one key thing that we're going to go slightly back. That's what kind of led me to this and realizing, okay, I can do the cards, right? There's one defining factor. I have to go back. I'm sorry. Back when we lived on the most haunted property, I looked at my partner one day and I explained to him that I was being shown what was supposed to be. We had like a small roundabout, what was supposed to be in that roundabout, which was these white rocks, these giant stones, and then rose petals or rose bushes with like a giant, longhorn skeleton with an alligator skull. Unbeknownst to me, that was what was supposed to be there. So fast forward, we're with my father-in-law on Father's Day, and we're barbecuing, and this conversation got brought up. And I looked him dead in his eyes, and I told him, my partner was like, babe, tell him what you told me. And I told him, and he looked over at my partner, and he goes, you told him that, right? You're joking. And he goes, no, he came up to me and randomly told me this. My partner's mother passed away when he was 13. That's what she was planning on putting there in that exact moment. That was the defining factor that made my father-in-law question everything that he had been taught. Take in mind, my father-in-law is also very spiritually active. He calls them haints. He sees them, or he calls them spooks. He sees them a lot as well. So he knew that, but that was a defining factor that also helped build that confidence of, oh shit, wait, there's something here to that. It's also very funny, when I first got down here, right before I met my mother-in-law, our stepmother-in-law, I also had dreamed of her. Literally like 5 to 10 minutes before she showed up, I looked at my partner because he came home from work early and woke me up. And I told him, I was like, this is what I walk out the door and boom, I just met her. It was very weird. So fast forward to modern times now, we're here recently. And I finally got my hands on the Flowers from the Dead Oracle deck. This was also another defining factor. I was so drawn to these cards, I discovered them through to a YouTuber, and my friend bought me a deck, gifted me a deck. So I set up, and I'm doing general card pulls. I posted it on Instagram, and I got the attention of the creator. I finally got to interview them, and another defining factor of this was during that interview, and they've always told me this, I was like, your cards are so amazing, you've done so much amazing work, and they're like, Lotus, it's not the cards, it's you. You are the tool, not the cards. And I was like, I don't understand. I just love these cards. Unbeknownst to me, when my partner was going through cancer treatment, he is fully recovered. He is fully cancer-free. That's when I started doing them a little bit more. And eventually I started doing the online, before my partner's cancer journey. I started teaching. I had people come up to me and they're like, yo, you need to teach. Eventually that bled into me offering readings. And it wasn't until I was 29 going on to 30 that I actually advertised or made a video and I said, holy shit, I'm walking the path of a medium. It wasn't until 3 years or last year did I actually discover that I'm not just a medium, I am a channeling medium. What's the difference? So for one, there are different types of mediumship. There's what is known as an evidential medium. An evidential medium is a medium who will actually provide evidence that you cannot deny. Well, shit, I just learned something I did not know either. I used Google really quick to pull up the definitions. So there's a mental mediumship and then there's physical mediumship. This is what I did not know. So here's some elaboration. Mental mediumship, this is the most common type where the medium receives information from spirits through mental impressions, often without going into a trance state. Clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairtransence, which is the taste, clairsentience, which is the smell, and then gathering information from touching objects. I forgot what it's called, but there's a psychic ability where you can touch objects and you get information from the history of those objects. This is the part that I did not know. Here's the physical mediumship. This involves the medium's physical body being used to interact with spirits, often through channeling or trances. Channeling, allowing a spirit to speak or manifest through the medium's voice or actions. That is what I do. And that is one of the reasons that it exhausts the hell out of me as well. There's trance mediumship, going into a trance state to communicate with spirits, and the materialization, physical manifestations of spirit, i.e. apparitions and voices. I did not know that. There's also an evidential medium as well. So I'm somewhat of a physical, kind of just a medium. I don't like doing all the things, but I sometimes see impressions inside my mind. Other times it is specific. I'll pick up on the personality types and things like this. How did I get to that point that I was a channeling medium? I started doing a lot of readings. There was a moment in time where I had to raise some money, and I had like over 100 readings, and probably in the past 5 years I probably done over 1,000. It wasn't until I switched to this type of readings where I record it was when it really started to shine and really started to tap into that. I also start this thing where I do blind reads. For one, it makes it more challenging for me. And what a blind read is I don't need any information regarding anybody that I'm doing or trying to read for until after that reading. That way I'm going in it completely blind. It also helps me not doubt myself. And again, it helps that non-biased format from happening where you're experiencing this situation. I've been through that situation. I'm just going to give you my advice versus spirit. Well, I was doing these, and there are some days where I can just do one reading. There are some days where I can do 4 readings. But I didn't understand it. It started to frustrate me of why these specific readings, like what was happening that was draining me completely. That's what led me to have a conversation with a mutual, and they're like, yeah, Lotus, you're channeling them. You're not just receiving downloads or messages from them. You're literally channeling them. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And in fact, there's going to be a second part to this. I'm sorry. I didn't think this was going to take that long. And I feel like I've just blabbered a lot. If I have, I'm so sorry. But, yeah, well, in the process of that and my readings, I stumbled across a podcast. And if you have me on TikTok, you've probably already seen this. It is called Twilight Tonic. On that podcast, they interview all different types of mediums and psychics from all different types of walks of life, right? And back when I was going in with my partner, I would listen to these episodes, and because I wanted to learn all these techniques. I have multiple books, and there's only a few of them that has actually taught me. One of those is an energy exercise book, which is the Psychic Energy Codex. But all the other books, it was just like meditate, do this, do that, and none of it worked for me. Neurospiciness. And in those interviews, they always get asked, what is some advice you would give somebody who's trying to develop theirs? And it's the best advice I've ever heard. Put yourself out there, as in don't randomly start walking up to people and start channeling them, but try to find exercises that work for you, and don't waste your time on all of these books, because again, most of these books, it's the same information. And in one of the videos that I made on TikTok, I got a comment of, what am I doing wrong? I ground like the Psychic Witch, their book, and it just doesn't work for me. It's because some people, when you go into channeling, you're not needing to ground, you're needing to learn how to summon more energy, okay? That's going to be in the second video, though. The second video is also going to have a slight Q&A of some questions that I've been asked about the mediumship, but that is the timeline, roughly, of me. In other words, it has taken my entire life to get to the point where I am now, and I'm still, pushing that. The reason I wanted to bring this into this video is to show people that don't go into this expecting instant results, but also don't beat yourself up if things are not going the way that you think they should go. Spirit is going to help you, but when you start interacting with spirit, you need to specifically set boundaries with them. I'm not connected to spirit all the time. The only ones that I am is my ancestry and then my partners. And it's so funny when they pop through and they're like, hey, can you tell your partner this? And I'm like, sure. And psychic protection, okay? Psychic protection is so important, because especially if you discover you are a channeling witch, you're not going to want a spirit to access you if it has negative energy into it, all right? And again, you're going to come across all different types of things in all different walks of life. But let me know in the comments if you have any questions. And again, I'm sorry if I rambled. I wanted to make sure there was enough detail. And the second video is going to have the Q&As. I am going to pull a card, though, even though this is a 30-minute video. I got to do this video all